All right, picture this absolute television gold. Keir Starmer, our beleaguered prime minister who has been avoiding serious interviews like they are radioactive, finally sits down with Andrew Neil, one of the most forensic and unforgiving political interviewers in British media history, a man who has reduced seasoned politicians to stammering wrecks with just a raised eyebrow and a pointed question. Everyone is expecting the usual. Neil will grill Starmer on the scandals, Starmer will deflect and waffle, it will be painful but predictable. But then, completely out of nowhere, Starmer drops an absolute bombshell that nobody saw coming, a revelation so unexpected, so significant, so politically explosive that it leaves even Andrew Neil, a man who prides himself on never being surprised, visibly stunned and scrambling to recalibrate his entire line of questioning. We are talking about a moment of genuine political theater, the kind that gets replayed for years, the kind that changes narratives and shifts the entire conversation. Whether this bombshell helps Starmer or destroys him further is almost beside the point. The sheer audacity of dropping it during a hostile interview with one of Britain's toughest journalists is absolutely extraordinary. This is not the Starmer we have seen fumbling through Parliament and hiding from scrutiny. This is something different, something desperate perhaps, but undeniably dramatic. If you want to see the full breakdown of what exactly Starmer revealed and why it has Westminster absolutely reeling, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications immediately, because what happens next is going to dominate political coverage for days, and you need to be fully informed. So let us set the scene properly, because understanding the context makes this moment even more extraordinary. Andrew Neil is not your average television interviewer. This is a man who has been doing this for decades, who has interviewed every major political figure in Britain and beyond, who is famous for his meticulous preparation and his ability to trap politicians in their own contradictions. When you agree to sit down with Andrew Neil, you know you are walking into a professional demolition. You know that every word you have ever said publicly will be available to him. You know that he will have receipts for every claim you make. Politicians do not go on Andrew Neil's program because they think it will be fun. They go because refusing would look even worse, like they are afraid of scrutiny. Starmer has been avoiding serious interviews for weeks, probably because his media team knows that his current position is essentially indefensible and that any competent interviewer would tear him apart. But eventually, the pressure to appear became too great, the accusations of cowardice and hiding became too damaging, and he agreed to sit down with Neil. You can imagine the preparation, the briefing sessions, the anticipated questions and rehearsed answers, the attempts to predict every line of attack and prepare defensive responses. What you cannot prepare for is the decision to drop a massive revelation that changes the entire dynamic of the interview. The interview starts as expected, with Neil immediately going for the jugular on the Mandelson scandal. He's got the timeline laid out, he's got the documentation, he's got quotes from Starmer contradicting his current position. Starmer is doing his usual routine of deflecting, of trying to reframe questions, of giving long answers that say nothing concrete. Neil is not having it, cutting him off, demanding actual answers, pointing out the contradictions. It is car crash television in the best possible way, watching a prime minister squirm under proper scrutiny for the first time in weeks. And then, just when it seems like this is going to be another brutal but ultimately familiar interview, Starmer drops it. The exact nature of the bombshell is what makes this so extraordinary. Starmer reveals, apparently for the first time publicly, that there are documents, evidence, information relating to the Mandelson scandal that he claims completely exonerates him and proves that the allegations of impropriety are false. But here's the twist. He cannot release these documents publicly for reasons of national security or legal restrictions or some combination of factors that he outlines in frustratingly vague terms. It's a classic political move, claiming exculpatory evidence exists, but you can't see it. Trust me, it's real and it proves I'm innocent. Except he's doing it to Andrew Neil on live television in a context where that kind of maneuver is going to be immediately challenged and dissected. Neil's reaction is absolutely priceless. You can see the wheels turning, the instant recognition that this is either a genuine revelation that changes everything or a desperate Hail Mary from a drowning prime minister. He immediately pivots, abandoning his prepared questions to focus entirely on this new claim. If the documents exist and they exonerate you, why have you not released them? If there are legitimate legal or security reasons they cannot be released, can you provide any evidence of those restrictions? If you are asking the public to trust you that these documents exist and say what they claim they say, why should anyone believe you, given the pattern of dishonesty and cover-ups we have already seen? It's a masterful interviewing, taking Starmer's attempted escape route and turning it into a new trap. Starmer's responses are fascinatingly evasive, even as he tries to appear open and transparent. He talks about the importance of proper procedures, about not wanting to compromise ongoing investigations, about respecting the independence of various oversight bodies. He insists the documents are real and that they will vindicate him, but he cannot provide specifics about when they might be made public or what exactly they contain. It's like watching someone claim they have a get-out-of-jail-free card, but refusing to show it to anyone. And Neil is absolutely not letting him get away with the move unchallenged. What makes this bombshell particularly interesting is the strategic calculation behind it. Starmer is clearly trying to create doubt, to introduce the possibility that maybe the scandals are not as clear-cut as they appear, to give his remaining supporters something to cling to when defending him. If he can convince people that exculpatory evidence exists but cannot be released yet for legitimate reasons, he buys himself time. He muddies the waters. He makes the simple narrative of corruption and cover-up slightly more complicated. It's a desperate move, but it might be all he has left. But the problem with this strategy is that it requires people to trust Starmer, and that is precisely what he has comprehensively lost. His credibility is so shattered that when he makes claims about secret evidence that proves his innocence, the natural response is skepticism rather than belief. If the evidence is so compelling, why has it not been released already? If the restrictions on release are legitimate, why can't he provide more details about their nature? The vagueness itself breeds suspicion, the secrecy fuels conspiracy theories, and the whole thing ends up potentially making his position worse rather than better. Neil presses him on the specifics relentlessly, and this is where the interview becomes truly gripping television. Every time Starmer tries to move on to another topic, Neil brings him back to the documents. Every time Starmer gives a vague answer, Neil demands precision. Every time Starmer appeals to trust, Neil reminds him of specific instances where that trust has been violated. It's a masterclass in how to interview a politician who is trying to escape accountability, and it's absolutely brutal to watch. You can see Starmer becoming increasingly flustered, increasingly defensive, the composure slipping as the pressure mounts. The political implications of this bombshell are complex and potentially contradictory. On one hand, Starmer has introduced uncertainty where there was growing consensus that Starmer is simply corrupt and must resign. If there is even a possibility that exculpatory evidence exists, it complicates the calls for his immediate departure. On the other hand, the vagueness and secrecy around these alleged documents reinforces the narrative of cover-up and deception. And the timing, dropping this in a hostile interview rather than through proper channels, makes it look like a PR stunt rather than a genuine revelation. The opposition reaction has been swift and predictably dismissive. Conservative MPs are calling it a desperate lie from a prime minister who knows he is finished. They are demanding that if these documents exist, they be released immediately, and if they cannot be released for security reasons, that Starmer provide evidence of those restrictions to an independent oversight body. Reform UK is being even more blunt, with Nigel Farage calling it absolute nonsense and comparing it to a child claiming their homework was eaten by a dog. The Liberal Democrats are demanding an independent investigation into whether these documents actually exist and what they contain. But perhaps most damagingly, the reaction from within Labour itself has been notably muted. You'd expect Starmer's own party to rush to his defense, to back up his claims, to demand that skeptics wait for the evidence before judging, but that's not happening.
Senior labor figures are offering qualified support at best, saying things like, if the Prime Minister says the documents exist, we should wait to see them, which is support so lukewarm it might as well be ice. The lack of vigorous defense from his own side tells you everything you need to know about how much faith they have in his claims. The media coverage has been absolutely relentless, with every major outlet analyzing the interview from every angle. Legal experts are weighing in on whether the claimed restrictions on release are plausible. Political analysts are debating whether this was a brilliant tactical move or a catastrophic error.